Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to the Secretary of State for his statement. While I can understand the reasons why the BBC was the best source of information, we couldn't have it in advance, it is disappointing that there appears to have been no arrangements made for the statement to be circulated now to members. I hope the Secretary of State can confirm that before we finish tonight, the statement will be available to all members who want a copy of it. The Secretary of State has gone on bold words about changing the peace process guarantee, because that's what the backstop is. It's a peace process guarantee. We shouldn't let it be called anything else. But despite the spin, that guarantee remains in place, and it must remain in place. So can the Secretary of State confirm that the Government is still bound by exactly the same political guarantee that it entered into in December 2017, that it is the UK Government's responsibility to come up with a way of managing the Irish border that complies with their red lines and which complies in its entirety with the Belfast agreements? But for those of us for whom the peace process guarantee was an advantage and not a problem, nothing has changed. We've still got the same rotten deal taking Scotland out of the European Union against the express wish of 62% of our sovereign national citizens. We've still got the same sellout of Scotland's fishing fleet, exactly the kind of sellout that the Secretary of State for Scotland promised to resign over, and still hasn't. And no doubt in the debate tomorrow and possibly later in the week, we'll get the same condescending answers to questions about the impact on Scotland. The answer is simply Scotland, get back in your box. Scotland, this is the price you have to pay for being part of the United Kingdom. Well, Mr. Speaker, I hear hisses from the Conservative benches, Mr. Speaker. I've lost count the number of times that Cabinet Ministers have responded to questions about the impact of Scotland by saying, can I remind the honourable gentleman that Scotland is part of the United Kingdom? Well, tonight, Mr. Speaker, we're seeing clearer than ever the price of being part of that. Can the Secretary of State confirm, as well as having intensive briefing sessions with the European Research Group, taxpayer-funded, who represent themselves, as well as having a briefing for Arlene Foster, First Minister of Nowhere, at what time tonight were the First Ministers of the national governments of Scotland and of Wales as to what was happening? Or were they left to hear it on the news, while others who hold no national government positions were given preferential treatment? Will the Secretary of State not accept that the mood of Parliament and the mood of our four nations is that this deal cannot go through? Will he accept that the only legitimate choice to give to Parliament and to the people is not between this deal and no deal, it's between this Brexit and no Brexit? And can I ask him to make sure that the Prime Minister and her Cabinet colleagues are fully aware of the fact that if his government insists and continue to insist on dragging the people of Scotland out of the European Union against their will on these or any other terms, the people of Scotland will be given the choice as to which of the two unions matters more to us. The answer to that, Mr. Speaker, will not be the answer that the smiling right honourable gentleman on the government front bench expects or wants.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Prime Minister is still engaged in the talks in Strasbourg, but it is certainly her intention to speak personally to the First Ministers of both Scotland and Wales at the earliest opportunity once those talks have concluded. I would say to the honourable gentleman that I do take exception to the insinuation, the early part of his comments, that the government is in some way resiling from its support for the difficult and challenging process of peace building and reconciliation in Northern Ireland. That process is something that ought to unite members from all parties in this House. And the government, as has been said by the Prime Minister and by others repeatedly, our commitment to all the undertakings that were given in and flow from the Belfast and Good Friday Agreement continue undiminished and always will do so while this government is in office. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I thought that the honourable gentleman painted a caricature of this government's attitude towards Scotland and the Scottish people. And I won't go into the political knockabout. I'm sorely tempted to go towards. But I would say this. It's a bit rich for the honourable gentleman to give lectures about respecting the results of the referendum. When what his then party leader said, now airbrushed out of history, his then party leader said was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to vote for Scottish independence, was put to the people of Scotland. It was rejected decisively, and I just wish the honourable gentleman would accept that mandate from the Scottish people.
Sir William Cash.